Today we'll see what a film set and a model railway have in common, and a mini progress update from the layout. Hi everyone, I'm Martin and welcome back to Donnington Castle Model Railway. Now, there haven't been many videos for the past couple of months, and that's primarily due to work commitments. So when I did the last layout update, I just finished a big project with work, and I was hoping to have a bit of time to kind of recover from that and to kind of crack on with some of the layout. But another big project came along very, very quickly with a really short timescale. Now, that took up a lot of my time, but I've still been able to get on with some modeling. But that work project involved some filming, and along with that comes the inevitable editing process. And when I was spending all day at work editing, the last thing I really wanted to do when I got home was then edit more footage. Because at the end of the day, to me, building this model railway is a hobby. And YouTube is just part of sharing that hobby. And what it should never feel like to me is feel like it's work. And so, yeah, that's just a quick reason why the lack of videos. As I say, I've been making quite a bit of progress, actually. And I will share that when I get some time just to sit down and to put some videos together. But today's video is just looking at something that came out of the work project, which I found quite interesting. Now, part of the scope of the project was to build a set that we did some filming on. And normally we'd look for a set design company to do that. But with the incredibly tight timescales, it wasn't actually easy to find anybody to come in and do that to the spec that we needed, to the budget that we had, and in the timescales. So I thought that I would give set design a go. Which was an interesting process. I think it's something I wouldn't have actually tried had I not gotten back into modeling, because I think that a lot of the confidence that came out of taking that project on had come from the layout here, which I think was a really interesting and a really positive thing. But it was my first time building a set, and it struck me that going through that process, there were a lot of similarities between the process we follow when we're building our layouts and actually creating that set. And I thought it was quite interesting how skills map across between the two domains. Now, the techniques themselves are slightly different when you're working, obviously, 1:1 or full scale compared to 1:76 scale. But I found myself using a lot of the same skills and a lot of using the same mindsets and approaches. So I thought it'd be interesting just to go look at the film set that I built and just pick out a few things from that particular set that I felt mapped across very neatly into the model railway world. Then when we've looked at the sets, we'll come back to the railway and I will show you some progress I've been making on a few areas of the layout. But let's get across to the set. I will show you a picture of what the room looked like beforehand. So as you can see from the photo of the room beforehand, it's a very nondescript office environment. And what I'll do now is I will cut to some video of the final set and then talk you through some of the techniques and interesting things that I found out from doing that project. Now, the only thing in this room that's real is the door. That is the real door. That's been a few effects added to it. So all of these walls are fake walls, and they are what are known as theatre flats. I.e. that they're flat panels, in this case what's known as hard flats, because they have a board top to them rather than a soft fabric top to them. And they were effectively model railway baseboards turned on end, as I'll show you from the next shot. So as you can see, we have OSB board. This is 9mm. If I come to the end, you can see the profile of that in here. And then we just have a wooden frame, the same as we would do on our model railway. So you can see we've got some corner supports in there. And then this is effectively propped up 90 degrees. But it really is the same technique and approach as building baseboards for a model railway, which I thought was a very interesting thing to discover. Now, on top of the boards, we had to try and get an old concrete finish. Now, this isn't the best lighting to show you this in, and obviously I'm casting a shadow on this now. But on top of the wooden board, what we did is used bonding coat plaster. Now, that's a very coarse type of plaster. It's you put it between the wall and the top coat, or the really smooth finish coat on when you're plastering a wall. Now, the good thing about it is if you don't apply too much pressure, you get lots of variation and texture into the surface. And then what that means is that then when you go over the top with paint, if you don't press too hard with the paintbrush, you get this effect of paint settling on different layers in the texture to then give a little bit of a kind of a sense of different layers and dirt and grime settling on the walls, which again is a very familiar concept to me. So for example, when I built the viaduct, I started out with a base color. In this case, this is actually a magnolia underneath here. You can just see peeking through. And then you kind of go over the top with different washes in order to add some kind of depth and some variation in color. And you can actually see the join in the boards here, where the plaster's just drawn itself into the gap. And the great thing is that that then mimics the cast sections of concrete. So that was a very nice discovery there. Now, obviously, when we're working on much smaller scales, then this coarseness is maybe not what we want in order to create a concrete wall. But what I've come to realize is that this bonding coat of plaster might actually be very good for hillsides. It's got that sense of texture in it, and it's a very easy thing to go buy a bag of plaster and mix that up. I thought it was very interesting how the same kind of mindset and approach you can kind of take, again, applying it with different tools and techniques, but using the same philosophy, you can build up some similar effects. And here you can see where I've used a much coarser finish, just to give a real sense of variation. Again, when you're hitting this with light from the side, you get this real sense of texture, which looks really good when you're filming. So this here is a sticky brick effect, textured. I'm not sure what the word is. It's not paper. It's like a vinyl substance with some texture on it. Now, when this comes out of the packet, it's very shiny and new. So I've been over this with the airbrush just to give that a little bit of a dull down. I think this is a really good example of a technique that you can transfer directly from modeling. We're used to using brick paper and things like that and applying that on top of surfaces. That's exactly what we've done here. The texture in this looks great on the lights. And so, yes, I think that's a really interesting technique. And then if we move up to the pipe work, this was all brand new plastic pipe. And again, as you can see, just using the airbrush to go over that and weather that, just give it a little bit of a duller finish, exactly the same way as we do in weathering. And then moving here, again, we can see rust patches. This is Revel rust paint, again, whacked into the airbrush, and then we've just used it to simulate where rusty water has come out of the pipes, leaked out of the pipes and come down the wall. Now, we're doing this on a little bit of a bigger scale here, but it's exactly the same technique that we'd use when we're weathering up something. So really interesting to see how those kind of approaches translated into this world. In this world, using different techniques and different tools, but the same kind of philosophy and approach, which I think is really interesting. And then again, on the film set, the same as on the model railway, the laser cutter and the 3D printer come in really handy. So this is a prop. It's like an indicator light box. Where again, you can see that this has been made in a modular manner using the laser cutter and then kind of all stuck together. And then using the 3D printer to create things. So these are rivet heads. These are just a very simple design on the 3D printer. And another interesting technique here is that when you're on a film set, if you're only filming from the front, you don't need to do anything about the back. Now, I know some of us take that approach in our models, that if we're not going to look at a particular scene or a particular part of the layout from a certain angle, then we don't tend to finish things off. Me personally, I assume that I'm going to be putting cameras all in my from every angle in my layout at some point in the future. So I tend not to do this. But as you say, the magic of the movies is sometimes when you kind of look from the other way, you can kind of see how it's all put together. Now, I realise the set that we built is just one of many different types of set that you might put together for filming. But hopefully it showed you a few of the kind of commonalities between modelling and that world, and also where some of the differences lie in terms of, for example, creating a concrete effect on the railway compared to what you're doing in kind of full scale. But let's move on now to the railway, and I will show you some progress that I've been making. So on the last layout update, I mentioned I was going to focus in 3 areas. They were the track laying, they were the retaining wall, and the heritage line station. Now, the track laying, I will give you a very quick update on now, but there's going to be a full video on how I do that coming very, very soon, because as you'll see, I've made lots of progress with that. The heritage line station, again, is a longer project, and I'm only partway through that, so I'll catch you up on that another day. But today, I will show you the progress I've made on the retaining wall, and in particular, my troublesome kind of cut-through / tunnel. So thank you all very much for all your ideas on the tunnels. I found myself going around in circles on this with lots of different ideas. I tried mocking up a few of things. I wasn't really happy with them. And eventually I settled on an idea to do 2 small foot tunnels set into one of the retaining walls underneath one of the kind of the arches. Now, I don't know how prototypical this is, but to me, it's an interesting feature. It looks quite cool. And actually, it kind of allows me to actually kind of get on and kind of get this bit done. But it's been influenced by all of your kind of thoughts and suggestions, so thank you very much for those. So let's just go back in time and remind ourselves of what the retaining wall looked like at the last layout update, and then I'll take you through the process of adding those tunnels in and how I've been able to achieve that. This is a video clip from the last layout update, and in it you can see how the retaining wall stopped at the signal box. Now, the objective was to get that retaining wall finished off, but also to put in a foot tunnel underneath for passengers effectively heading to the village of Speen. So let's see how the tunnel section was made. This is the lightburn file containing the final design for the foot tunnel. I went through lots of different versions and tried to take into account all of the comments that you very kindly left. And I thought this was the most visually pleasing and also seems to fit with the idea of a tunnel passing under the main lines. It's constructed in roughly the same way as the other retaining wall sections. It's just in this case we have another piece that fits just behind that fits just behind this brick fascia that's cut slightly bigger, meaning that the tunnel lining will just very nicely sit in there and fit flush against that front edge. But you'll see more of that when I start to assemble it. Now let's look at the piece that's going to sit behind this. I've made all this in several pieces. So this is the piece that's going to go underneath the baseboard. At the front here, this is just going to slot in by the retaining wall. And then this will be screwed through the other baseboard from the top. So that will then sit in like that. Then the tunnels themselves are just laser cut. There's a top and a bottom and some arches. They are the same size as the inner arches on the retaining wall. Floor's been painted black. There'll be a back put on this once it's all in situ, and that will just fit on here. And then the floor will meet up with the existing baseboard section, and the retaining wall will be right at the end here. Then fitting in these, this is thin card that I've painted blue and laser etched brickwork on. You might actually just be able to see through that it's so thin, the card, that it has gone through that in some places. And that basically gets rolled up into an arc shape and then that will fit inside that. And then there's 2 of those. So the assembly process is going to be to add these in here. Then I will fix this in place underneath the baseboard, slide this in underneath and get that lined up. And then pop the retaining wall front on here. And then at the back, I can then put a backing piece in there just to seal that off and make that nice and dark. So that's the assembly process. I will show you when that's all in place. And the view from underneath, it's quite difficult to show this, but hopefully you can see how this has been attached onto the baseboard and is kind of butted up against that retaining wall, which you can just see the back of there. It's worked really effectively, and I think I'm going to use this technique somewhere else on the layout, but more about that next time. That is all now installed, and I've had a little bit of ballast just to show you the effect there. I'm going to go over the top of that with a little bit of grout just to smooth that off a little bit. And if you can see there, you'll see those tunnels just disappear into darkness, which was the effect I wanted. So next jobs in this area is going to be to get some of that bare baseboard covered over and get this area with the crossing over the lines and the signal box all sorted, so I can then work on some point rodding, which is going to be coming up very soon. And by way of update, you will spot that the first of the main lines, the Western Region main lines, is now complete, and we have a loop of track. I will come back and talk about the point work and the overall track design in another video. I've changed my mind several times on this. You may notice that I have decided to remove the second connection to the southern line, which someone suggested a couple of videos back. But there's going to be some compromises, I think, between the space available, having good operational value and play value, and also realism when it comes to this. So I will talk through my thinking in a future video, and hopefully you can see where I'm going with everything. But to finish off today, let's see a train running round the loop on the upper level. So our Bachmann warship is just coming into what will be the station area. Just to note that none of the frogs on the points are powered at the moment. The warship's doing okay. And then up the gradient here as it comes around this curve. Obviously you can see super elevation. And then round into the area that's scenic on the heritage line. So you can see how this line runs above that one. And then this is where the downhill section starts just after this bridge to take you back down and round into the station area again. So finally, a loop. Hope you enjoyed seeing some of the progress I've been making on the layout. And hopefully now the work project is out of the way. I realize I did say this after the last work project. I'll be able to get stuck in and make lots more progress very quickly, and hopefully get those videos that I'm halfway through finished off as well. So in terms of next steps, getting the rest of the track laid is really important, but it's been really good to see a train running around the upper level, just to kind of validate that gradients on there aren't too steep or anything like that. I'm also going to keep going with the station build, and over the winter I'm going to be, as I mentioned before, creating a version of Newbury Station for this near side of the Heritage Line platform. So they're my kind of initial targets, but I hope to be able to make lots more progress soon and get some more videos out there. Now, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and seeing a little bit of one-to-one scale modeling, and also a quick update on the layout. Thank you so much for watching. If you are not a subscriber, please do think about subscribing. There'll be a subscribe button down there at the end of the video, and I will see you all on another video soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.